Well, welcome to season 10 of the award winning Retail Tea Break podcast. My name is Melissa Moore, the retail advisor. I'm a retail educator, trainer, and retail conference MC. And each week, as your host, I'll be joined by industry experts, retailers, and brands to dispel the myths, share their knowledge, and give you an insight into the retail industry. There's well over 100 episodes now for you to listen back to on your favourite podcast platform, or of course, watch us over on YouTube. And while you're there, please hit that follow button so that you get to listen first every week. And if you've enjoyed an episode, don't forget to leave a comment or subscribe to the podcast to stay connected. And remember, sharing is caring in the retail industry. Share an episode across any platform with your network. And if you're on LinkedIn or Instagram, tag me, Melissa Moore, and the Retail Tea Break podcast. Oh, and a little secret we've been keeping. You can now find the Retail Tea Break podcast on Substack. You'll get to read my take on each episode, extra learnings, and lots more insight. So subscribe to the Retail Tea Break podcast on Substack today. In the meantime, then, grab a cup of tea, sit back, and enjoy season 10 of the glorious Retail Tea Break podcast. This episode of the Retail Tea Break podcast is brought to you by Smart Gifty. The modular digital platform connects gift cards, loyalty, and data into one unified experience and is used by shopping destinations, shopping centres, and retail chains across Europe. Well, what makes Smart Gifty different? It's not the technology alone, but a philosophy to treat every customer as a guest and every interaction as a moment of hospitality. Gift cards here are not just payment instruments, but a powerful marketing and insight tool. It's a true closed-loop system, meaning funds stay on the issuer's own account with no banks, no intermediaries, and no revenue leakage. The platform is fully modular, highly personalizable, supporting physical and digital gift cards, Google and iOS wallets, and can be implemented in all back-end systems. So for more information, visit www.smartgifty.com today. Today, I'm joined by a retail project management veteran with more than 35 years in commercial construction and large-scale retail execution. From nationwide rollouts and remodels to new store build-outs, he has worked with some of the world's most recognized brands, helping Fortune 100 and 500 companies bring complex retail environments to life. After co-founding and scaling retail marketing services into a multi-million-dollar business, he went on to consult globally across construction, logistics, and fixture installation. Now based in Costa Rica and well known as the retail nomad, he combines deep industry expertise with a global perspective on how retail operates around the world. Nick Harbaugh, the retail nomad, welcome to the Retail Tea Break podcast.
Melissa, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited for the time we're going to spend together here today.
I am so excited about kind of doing a deep dive into what you know and what you've done, because I tell you, in the politest possible way, you've had an absolutely incredible career. Not that it's over anytime soon. So very excited for this conversation. But look, to kick us off, in the time that it takes to boil a kettle, which I am told is about 2 minutes, tell us a little bit more about you and, of course, your background in this industry.
Absolutely. Let's back up let's say childhood years, right? I used to love playing with Lincoln logs and Legos and these little games where you would put things together and build something. You'd build a fort as a child or try to build a house, if you will. And if you just, fast forward, if you look at our retail sector today, it's kind of what we do is we put bigger pieces together, which at the end creates a retail environment that we're all very familiar with globally. So my process was in going from childhood and through educational years, continued along that path. I thought I was going to start in engineering, if you will, for mechanical engineering. I quickly learned and realized I wasn't the best academic student, along that path. And I ended up having the opportunity to start my first entity in 1994. So come together, retail was booming across North America, one of the fastest periods of growth for that retail sector. We got a hold of some of the best brands that were out there booming in business, hundreds of stores being built per year, remodels and so forth, under the banner Retail Marketing Services, RMS. And we rode that wave of growth. Brands Radio Shack, which is no longer around in the US, GNC, Lowe's Home Improvement. We really learned a lot at such a young age in how to, copy, cut, repeat, and build and scale which it drove us to all the international borders of the US. We were very fortunate for the timing to our entry to the marketplace. It was a blessing, right? Then I had the ability to cross international borders. A
Mm.
few of those brands started going north and south, and I had a cell phone with an international plan way back then. I'm like, I can build some stores in Canada, and say the word A. I could go down to Mexico and say "Cómo estás?" and it really opened my vision internationally to what the world has to offer in our retail sector. So, quick synopsis on where I started and maybe where we're at here today.
It's amazing. It's incredible, though, that I know you breeze through the fact you built, supported, and installed so many of these stores. And I definitely want to go into that. But that
Sure.
international expansion obviously has been something that's been kind of right at the forefront of everything you've done. But as we say, installation, project management, right up to handing over keys to people like me as store managers. Like the work you've done and you continue to do is absolutely incredible and is very much embedded in this industry. But talk us through the process, because very few people listening would, I suppose, be aware of that. And I think they'd also be surprised at the detail and the different departments within retail kind of that you talk to too.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that we truly encourage is that communication of all departments, A, on the inside of the retail brand, visual marketing, merchandising, operations, logistics, when they're all in communication with one another, our probability of success on at the store level is, 1,000% higher. So I love it when an international brand, whoever it may be, they design a product or a display or fixture, or they want to change the theme, and let's scale this. Let's roll this out to 100 some store locations, if you will, and take it macro. And we look at the store list, we look at the delivery schedule, we look at the labor and so forth, and we put all of that together, and then we devise a plan for success. And I love that. We've blitzed stores internationally. Just to give you an example, Trinket Company, we blitzed at almost 600 store locations one evening, 15 countries from Canada to Chile. So they're A and B store locations one evening. We've got that international bandwidth to copy, cut, repeat, and replicate at scale on an international footprint. And to me, it's fun. It's like kind of solving a Rubik's Cube, if you will. And every project is a different Rubik's Cube. Pretty exciting,
It's
right?
it's bananas, like when you think about, but actually the impact that then has on their customer is that wow factor. Because as you said, it's like you've flicked a switch overnight, but you've done it everywhere. And that level of detail, like, absolutely blows my mind. You call yourself the retail nomad, but you have this consistency even when everything around you is changing. It's absolutely bonkers because obviously stores are stores. They don't always look the same. They're not in the same format, but you still have to deliver.
We do, and again, when you've got all the players, all the decision makers, at the table, pre-project, right? And sometimes we see and we feel like something's off here. And I've learned in my industry, in my career, to say no more than saying yes, because there's a lot of variables, a lot of moving pieces and parts. And when something is off, maybe they don't have the experience. Maybe they don't realize the repercussion effect at store level when we get there and arrive. And if, we need a 10-piece puzzle, I always say, and they ship us 7 or 8 pieces. Where do we get the other 2 or 3 pieces? I don't know. Yeah. That comes from experience and completing rollouts in thousands of stores. We literally can say that we've completed projects in hundreds of thousands of store locations. And that comes from 35 years of experience in the industry and seeing what works and what doesn't. And that's why we love to create that collaborative communication link with the client, the brand, the entity, the designers, the fixture manufacturers, the logistics arms and people. Because when we're all singing from the same sheet of music, we have a better melody, at the end of the day. And it eliminates the finger pointing because that's what can happen. What I learned younger years when we would acquire projects, when we didn't know all the other vendor partners, right? They kind of kept us siloed. And I was like, was that intentional? What's the benefit there? and we don't know who that player is. So what do? We would pick the phone up and we would call client. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Client, we didn't receive ABC product. Whatever it was, I called it a negative phone call, a complaint phone call. Guess what we do now when we all are walking hand in hand in unison? We don't even call the brand anymore. We call the vendor partner that we've known for many years. Hey, vendor partner, you shipped me a left hand. I should have had a left hand and a right hand to install that fixture unit on the wall, but we received two left hands. How can we modify that, fix it, retrofit it on site? The brand never hears the phone call and they're like, wow, that project was amazing. We didn't even hear a complaint. Then that comes from experience on finding solutions, not calling out problems and issues.
You have incredible experience over this 35 years, but is it getting easier within the industry, do you think, to work cross collaboratively like this? Has that got better over the years? Do you think it's gotten worse? Whether I suppose the almost the interference of socials or I suppose people being busier. How have you seen it change?
Well, I mean, I've been in the industry long enough. We've seen peaks and valleys, right? So if you look at the crash of '08, 9/11, there were really tap the brakes in some of those cases. After that happened, some of the brands would thin out the herd from their construction departments and their internal staff. What I've seen is thankfully, some of them now have leaned onto the vendors to be that light switch. When they need us, they turn it on. When they don't need us, they turn it off. And that way it's not a yearly, weight load on their cost structure at home base. But with that, they've got fewer resources. So we become more valuable in essence. Hence why I like to say no more than I say yes. A lot of those internal staffs are younger, right? And I say that and not as a finger pointing or not as a negative, but they don't have the experience, right? A lot of these retailers try to cut cost and
Mm.
minimize their overhead. And then the youthful team that they have, that if they do learn to lean up on us, fantastic. Some don't. And those are the ones I walk away from. I want my competitors to work on those projects. And I hate to say that, but we don't want every piece of business because not every piece of business is designed correctly. Or maybe the budget. They come to us and they say, we've got this project, whatever the project is, can you install this, whatever this display, fixture, millwork, whatever, in 1,000 store locations? Sure, we could do that. That's easy. But they want to pay X. X is the wrong number, right? Who defined X? I don't know. CFO, right? And not thanks, but no thanks. And it's having that ability to walk away from certain programs that aren't designed properly.
Gosh, do you know what? I'm loving the honesty there, and I think again that comes from this 35 years experience. Are you finding, and maybe I shouldn't even ask this question, are you finding that things aren't designed properly, or unfortunately in-house they're designed in a way to keep the CFO happy?
We've seen it all, right? And we sometimes we see and we feel that disconnect. We see and realize that visual merchandising or marketing never spoke to construction, never
Yeah.
spoke to ops, never spoke to their maintenance team that has to maintain whatever it is we're installing, right? And there's that disconnect sometimes internal, or on the flip side of that, we have those clients that just rock and roll. Like, wow, that team, they're in unison with one another. And you like those programs because we all feel successful at the end of that. The vendor side, the brand side, and the C-suite, CEO, CFO, like, wow, that was a really successful program. And that's why we encourage that communication in advance. Let's get that definition of the scope of work defined, A to Z, and let's dance through it front and back from every department's vision because there's a lot of pieces out there. And you being on the store ops side, you know what it's like. You see a program rollout, like, who thought that was a great idea? Like, wow, maybe Susie in marketing, but Billy in construction, it made no sense, right? That we've seen the good and bad over the years, and that's why we try to give that feedback, constructive criticism for those that are willing and want to hear it. Because some do and some don't. We've had clients that tap the brakes. Nick, we're the brand. We know what we're doing. Okay.
It's bizarre, isn't it? And actually, as you say, from a front end perspective, those in the store that you've built or the store that you've changed, know full well straight away that it's not going to work or it's not practical or it's not productive or it's inefficient. And actually, funnily enough, the customer can tell you that too. So I do always wonder how, in this day and age, we can be so disjointed in some departments from actually what you're saying you want the customer to have, that journey they need to have, but also what the people in store who are playing with the space, what they're going to live too. It's very strange in this day and age that that can still happen. But obviously, from what you're saying, it does.
We see it occasionally, right? But here, look at it from our perspective, right? I've been in the shop, you call it on this side of the pond, you all call it shop fitting. But
Yeah.
on the other side of the pond, we call it installation, project management, nationwide rollouts. We do those installs every day, every night,
Mm.
right? So just think every major international label that you've heard of, we probably touched it, done something with it. So look at that experience. We've touched literally thousands of those brand projects. Sometimes that brand comes to us that they have all the answers. Like you've only installed your brand, for the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We're trying to give constructive feedback and suggestions based off thousands of different brand rollouts. Like this worked really well last year. What if we considered your program by adding these few elements or steps to the process, to ultimately create a higher level of success and completion?
That's what's important, isn't it? Like, I wish they'd listen to you more, Nick, because obviously, again, as you said, 35 years experience, you kind of know what you're talking about. You really do.
We're here to help, is what I always say. So,
I
some
love
like
that.
that, some like that, some encourage it, and some don't.
Oh, I know it's weird, isn't it? But look, I want to kind of move us sideways a little bit, if you don't mind, because again, playing on the fact that you've been in this industry so long and the discussions you've had, the negotiations you've had, I kind of want to move us into selling. Because again, you've been really honest and open with me in the past about those deals that you've done. So I'm not even talking about the retailers themselves now or the brands, but how that works. Because again, I think this is a key area in retail right now that we kind of miss. We skip a beat here and we just presume people can sell. So you obviously do a lot of deals, a lot of negotiation. What are lessons that we can learn or the insights you can share when it comes from the way we'd say that you actually do business?
Great question, Melissa. That I don't know if there's an actual book, right? Step one, step 17, and so on. I'm a little more old school. I think you mentioned that in our prior chats and so forth. But backing up, when we originated in the 90s, mid 90s, we didn't have Google, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have laptops, right? I started my entity before Google, you know. So I remember we would mail paper brochures to clients, right? So if you look at that curve and that growth and what we have now at our luxury and fingertips, what we collected business cards, we had a Rolodex, right? And just bringing out some terms some of the viewers may not be familiar with if they're youthful, but I say that because today's technology and what we have access to is amazing. It's incredible. LinkedIn to me is the number one business platform in the world. Some get it, some don't. Those who don't they will not monetize as much as those who do, right? So what I do now is I connect A to B. I don't even look at it like I do sales. I build relationships for 10, 20 years, right? I'm here to create solutions and bring solution entities to brands, people, and folks that are in that decision-making position. And we enjoy that. And that connection, it's all about networking. I'm a member of a group. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen on LinkedIn, it's called The Mob. And I love it because it's easy to remember, right? It's hard to forget The Mob, but it's an acronym that stands for maximizing opportunities for your business. All we do is we bring a few hundred brands into a few events annually, and we hear where their pain points are. So we don't sell them, right? The odds of them needing my services at that point in time, in most cases, are very minuscule, right? But they might need flooring, they might need lighting, they may need engineering. Like, oh my goodness, you need to talk to my buddy Mikey or Susie. She's been in engineering for 27 years, and that connecting A to B type of scenario. And before you know it, I get the phone call. Nick, did you hear Nike's building 102 stores and Susie's needs installation? I'm like, I didn't hear that. Here's her number. I've worked with her for 22 years. It's that warm introduction. So I very seldom knock on the front door of the house. I always like to say I walk in the side door and I walk out the front door with $1 million PO, right? It makes
Wow.
selling fun and it's truly relationship oriented.
That's so interesting. I think from a business perspective, even from a customer perspective, you're building that emotional connection is what I'm hearing. You're listening. The art of listening, it is not, it's like it doesn't exist half the time out there nowadays, again, because of social media and our phones and our laptops. And we're so engaged all the time, but on our terms that we don't know how to listen.
I say the youth, I mean, they're on some of the platforms. I'm not really sure how you monetize in our industry or sector of business and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, we know going in that there's a high probability of transacting. And that's why all of my time is invested on LinkedIn. And before you know it, they see me, they know my name, they know my service offerings, and then they see my resume online. They see who we've installed for. Like, oh my goodness, if he can install for all those high-end luxury brands, he could probably help us with ours. So it's guerrilla marketing, if you will, reverse engineering the process. So I truly love connecting folks, networking with folks, and speaking. I spoke here this week at Euroshop in Dusseldorf on two different stages. Hopefully, some folks that didn't maybe know what I do or have done are maybe now aware of my name. So it's marketing and getting my name in front of international decision makers, and I truly enjoy it.
From a networking perspective again, because you're like the master of it. You're so good at it, and it seems to come so easily from you. Is that the suggestion? Because again, even from a retailer customer perspective, like there are so many ways now to get yourself in front of a customer. And I think we've forgotten that. I think, as you said, we've hit hard on the old-fashioned marketing. Well, not even old-fashioned, but email marketing that it kind of drops dead. Social media for the sake of playing social media, especially on certain platforms. But from the way you network, it is about constantly getting the name or the brand or you and those shells out there.
Exactly. And here's, I mean, let me flip the coin. If I was maybe one of my competitors, right? And they may knock on that front door, once a week, once a month, and the brand, they're like, we don't need your services. It could be a very annoying, could be offensive at times. Like, dude, I told you, we'll call you when we need you. And that, I don't like to offend people. I don't want to, upset them. So I just present my offerings. And that's why, I mean, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, but in the creation of the Retail Nomad YouTube channel that I built a few years back, all that does is it puts my name on the decision maker's desk on a weekly basis, but I'm not selling. I'm actually providing industry information, that maybe they weren't aware of what a store looked like in Singapore or Istanbul, Turkey, or Colombia. So all I do is I create content, and it's the ability to keep my name on their desk when they need installation or project management services. Hopefully they would think, hey, who's that short bald gringo that lives in Costa Rica, travels around the world and installs things internationally? Oh, Nick, you know. And if they want to use our service, great. And if they don't, no harm, no foul. So I actually dislike the actual term sales because nobody likes to be sold, right? None of us. I dislike it when you walk in a store and they're all over you and hounding you. I'm like, whoa, whoa, easy, tiger. You know?
It's softer. You're connecting with people, I suppose, on a human level. As you said, it's not about selling what you do. They'll figure that out for themselves. But if you keep showing up, and that's definitely the one thing I see with you, it's consistency, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on YouTube, you're there, the smiley version of you that actually, when you meet in person, is exactly the same. And it is that authenticity as well.
Totally. Yeah, and I mean I like it. I love it. It's fun. It's exciting. I met you in New York there. Was that last month? Oh my
It
goodness.
feels like it was
Feels
yesterday.
like I've had surgery since I saw you last. I mean,
It's mad.
but think of that. We're rubbing elbows out there in these associations. That's one thing I would tell some of your viewers potentially, especially if they're youthful or still in school. Join the associations. I mean, that's how you're going to meet individuals. That's how you and I met through. I'll give a shout out to Rethink Retail. Boom, you guys rock, and the TREs, top retail experts. I would not have met you without that connectivity that they brought us together. But it's the same. RDI, Retail Design Institute, Shop Association. I just met with the European leader, Leo, yesterday. Leo, you rock, dude. Thanks for getting me on stage. Another shout out. Yeah,
But
but
again, actually, that's really important that you celebrate other people as you go on your journey, and I think that's lost almost in time right now. But again, you lift people up as you move along yourself.
so many people these days are self-serving and they want to
Yeah.
build themselves up. But it takes a team, it takes an army, it takes we all should be hand in hand, winning and crossing the goal line together, right? And I love those folks that help me because I want to help them and reciprocate that, giving shout outs and the love to them. We all win. The industry can be fun if we allow it. I don't want it to be stuffy and too corporate suit and tie sometimes. And hence my goofy necklace everybody comments about.
I love this. And actually, on that, we've got to talk about the necklace. We've got to talk about where you're
Sure,
living technically right now, but also we need
sure.
to talk about the YouTube channel. Tell us all.
Well, okay, let's back up. I left the continental United States in 2005. And I learned by having that communication of that international plan on my phone when I was building stores in Canada and Mexico. I'm like, well, they can still reach me. My phone rings and oh, it's Nike. Hello, this is Nick. Nick, this is Nike. You know, I learned that I had that ability to communicate internationally across borders. So I ended up packing up my goods and I Scooby-Dooed down to Costa Rica in 2005. So my neighbors down there were monkeys and crocodiles, but I still could connect and communicate to the corporate, entities in London, New York, San Fran, Singapore. I still, as technology advanced, it allowed me the ability to live more of a unique lifestyle that was me very fun, very fitting, so to speak. So I've been in the jungle for 21 years, but I'm on this side of the pond, so there could be some upcoming changes, Melissa. Stay tuned.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
coming to Europe. I like this. But look, kind of a fascinating question, and I'm trying to ask it to everyone this season. What are you
sure.
most excited or curious about when it comes to the future of retail?
Retail's changing. It's always changed, right? I always like to say the only thing that doesn't change in our industry is change. So you have to be ready for it, right? Hence why I'm not a tech guy, right? Why was I at NRF in New York City? It's primarily heavily driven off technology. And what I've summarized just as a quick synopsis is tech drives brick. If you just as a simplicity,
Yeah.
mindset, look at the scan and goes, frictionless technology, a smart dressing room. I remember the first time I heard that, and I'm like, what in the world is a smart dressing room? What am I dumb? But learning what those advancements are, especially with the millennials, the Gen Alphas, and so forth. Our my demographic is slowing down, and the younger demographics are becoming the larger percentage of the buying populace, right? So we got to kind of follow those trends, which also changes that look and feel of the brick and mortar outlet. So those that have their finger on the pulse of those upcoming changes will be more successful. So I love learning and attending these shows. One facet has nothing to do with what I deal with. On the other hand, it has absolutely everything to do with what I deal with.
It does, though. It all does feed in eventually. I was literally saying this in the classroom yesterday that even if you don't see this right now, this is the kind of new age tech of the future. It eventually does come down. It kind of runs through that funnel. And even if you only see a small piece of it in 5 or 10 years' time in your store, it will still impact you and definitely your customer.
Absolutely. And for those that are my demographic, I like to say they're taking Fred Flintstone and they're moving me to the Jetsons. Right?
Wow, you heard it here first. I love that idea. But look, last question. So, Nick, and
Sure.
I don't know where this kind of answer is going to go.
Uh-huh.
What's coming up next for you in 2026?
Great question. And I'll give you a quick summary. All right. So I'm dancing through Europe here for a month or two. And then I'm going to jet back to the US and do a 3-month road tour. I've got that Scooby Doo bus wrapped with the retail Nomad on my RV. And I'm going to dance from Florida to California. And then after that, I'm probably going to swim back across the pond over here for a bit. So that
My
should,
goodness me.
yeah, yeah. It's the road show, the retail Nomad.
I love that. And obviously on that, as we said, catch that YouTube channel because it really does, you share all your little journeys and all your exciting ventures as well, and some incredible retail too.
I love it. I love the yin and yang. And some people grasp my concept, and I'm not sure if I did a great job explaining. But on the channel, I try to give the love of corporate America 1 week, if you will, and then I try to give a little local flavor of the culture. A brand that some may not be familiar with unless they've been to wherever I'm standing. Now with videos in over 50 countries around the world, it goes corporate brand we've all heard of, local brand most of us haven't heard of. That shake and bake, if you will.
Oh my goodness, if you're listening out there and you're in some far-flung country, reach out to Nick because I have no doubt he'll be hitting that country sometime soon. It's incredible though what you do, and sharing, especially those small independents, is just gorgeous. But it's just fascinating to see as well how retail's playing out around the world.
Absolutely. And it's exciting, to go touch and feel these individuals and brands on different continents that may not have the bandwidth or exposure, in the Americas or other entities, giving them a little bit of love and you can feel their passion, especially from the ma and pa's. And I love connecting with those type of folks.
Oh, I love that. I really do. Well, look, if you've enjoyed today's podcast episode, please do like and share it, of course, from any of the podcast platforms out there. And if you're on social media, tag me, Melissa Moore, and the Retail Tea Break podcast. You can listen back to all 10 previous seasons now across any of those platforms. And of course, if you're over on YouTube, do subscribe to the Retail Nomad and the Retail Tea Break podcast while you're there. So, Nick, again, remind us, where can we find you?
Great question. On LinkedIn, you can find me under my personal name, Nick Harbaugh, Harbaugh, or on YouTube under the name The Retail Nomad. Love to connect with everyone.
Oh, do. And I'm going to pop all those details in the show notes as well. Nick, it's been a pleasure. I know I saw you in New York early this year. I've obviously just seen you in Dusseldorf. It's been great to catch up on the podcast. And I have no doubt our paths will cross again very, very soon.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, Melissa. And thank you very much for your time today. You rock.
A huge thank you again to Smart Gifty for bringing us this episode of the Retail Tea Break podcast. Smart Gifty is a modular experience and insights platform trusted by leading destinations and retail environments. From shopping centres and retail chains to independent businesses and tourism or food destinations, Smart Gifty empowers every place that treats its customers as guests, not just transactions. So for more information, visit www.smartgifty.com today.